Hi everyone, welcome. Wonderful that you're here on this sunny day at a special afternoon. The coming 90 minutes we'll have an event where we will tell you more about the Center for Energy Innovation. A kickoff event where we hope to tell you a lot more about what the center is, what we're doing, what we can mean for the UT, for you, for your research, what we can do for you. In the studio here is Jos. Welcome Jos, the director of the center. Maybe you could tell a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I was hired about a year and a half ago by the board of the university to shape this initiative around energy research, knowing that a lot of things were already happening at the university, but in a relatively dispersed manner. And with that, the visibility of the subject was not really very great. So what we tried to find out is who is doing what at the UT in terms of energy research, and how can we connect all that. There was a pre-group, so to say, before, but we started building, and that is essentially what we did in the last year and a half. I will tell a little bit more about that later. Before this, I was in the board of management of TNO, and before that 15 years in Axel Nobel in various roles, and in between also a 10-year full professor in chemical engineering. So it is a hardcore beta background that I bring to the table. But meanwhile, I've also learned that it is not just about technology, it is also about society and citizens and everything around that. And I think the UT has something beautiful to offer in integrating those two lines, and we really have to look for ways to make that happen.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's indeed what I wanted to ask you. So I know you a little bit. We've known each other for some time already. So why the UT? So why do you think the UT is such a good place to start a center for energy innovation?
Well, I would almost say the UT didn't know. And but there is so much beautiful stuff happening. If you're able to unlock that entire knowledge base, and then we're really talking 600, if you take it narrow, 1,000 researchers when you take it a bit wider. Energy is a central theme without knowing it. And I think making a nice wrap around it and making it visible, but that is internally, and that is also externally. And I think what I've learned in the past year, what is happening in Enschede, yeah. It is beyond belief. But what I also learned, the rest of the nation doesn't know. And that is exactly what we try to do, to make it visible, to make it coherent, to make it explicit. And with that whole perspective, all of a sudden it comes to life, and it is being recognized very easily. That is what we have learned.
Wonderful. Sounds good. We will learn much more about this later. Let's first watch a little word of welcome by our own rector, Tom Veldkamp, who could not be here in the studio with us today. But he will be online with a video. Please, let's watch the words of Tom.
Welcome. I'm very pleased to welcome you all by this kickoff event for the Center of Energy Innovation. Unfortunately, I'm not able to join myself physically, but at least I have the opportunity to give you a welcome word of this important event. Why is it important? Because as you know, society is faced with the energy transition challenge. We have to make a difference, and it has to happen in the next decades. And we as a university have a lot of knowledge about energy technology and technology development. And apart from that, we also have a lot of knowledge about society and impact in society. So together, we can really contribute to the energy transition challenges. We cannot do this alone. We need partners in society to make this happen and to make this a successful transition. And that's why the Center of Energy Innovation is an important initiative. So together with our partners, we can make a difference. And we do this by connecting. And this event is also meant to connect, to know each other, and to know what is actually needed to have a successful energy transition in the nearby future. So I hope you get inspired and you get connected, and I wish you all a very sustainable future, and hopefully with a successful energy transition where we actually have made a significant contribution. Enjoy your event.
So very inspiring words of Tom, I think. And of course, he makes the strong link to sustainability, to the big challenge that the world is facing. Is that for you yourself, Jos, also an important, driver to work on the energy transition?
Yes, it surely is. If I look back to my early years, so to say, I studied environmental sciences, and in that time, it was very much, I would say, the waste issues, the big pollution things, eutrophication of waters, all that kind of things were playing a major role. Part of that has been, I would say, more or less technically solved, but it also tells where my heart lies. And if you take that to the current situation, the energy transition versus sustainability at large, I think energy is a major pillar in that whole transition. If you solve the energy issues in a proper way, then I'm convinced that it will be not too difficult to make a transition into sustainability. That also requires things with circularity, material streams and everything. But I think the connection of all that is a very natural and logical one. But the energy transition is fundamental in allowing the rest to happen. If you solve the energy issue, all of a sudden water production is not that much of an issue. Food production becomes more easy. So all these things, it's all interconnected.
Interesting. So we will hear more about how the CI will address the issues. Maybe it's important for the people who are watching to say that you can actually ask questions via the chat. Somebody will go through the chat and make sure that some of the questions also reach this table. So please feel free to ask any question that you want. And this is really an event where we just want to explain you what's happening and to engage you with all the exciting work that happens within the CEI. So, Jos, let's first explore a bit more the general lines of the center, and then we go into 4 sub-themes, as it were, within the center, and also other people will join the discussion then digitally. But maybe, in general, I mean, you have said a bit about the center already, but could you explain a little bit more about the center? For instance, why was it started? Why did the UT hire you to do this?
Well, to put it very bluntly, it was recognized that there was a lot going on an individual level at researchers in teaching when it comes to the energy theme, but it was not interconnected. And with that, it simply did not have any face, so to say. So creating face, creating coherence and creating visibility, I think were the key assignments that the board hired me for. And in that perspective, we started to build a program that, basically relies on 3 main pillars. We have one pillar which is very much connected to learning, because we also see that for the energy transition, a human capital agenda that is enormous is being asked for. People are talking for the Netherlands, 100,000 of new employees or retrained employees are needed for that. So the learning aspect, and we do that together with Saxion and the ROC to do that in a challenge-based learning mode, where we are convinced that with that we position ourselves in a rather strong mode in that perspective. So not just as academics, but as a part of the system. I think that is the key there. The second pillar is that we want to play the role of a hub. We see that there is, let's say, this 1,000 researchers doing things in the house that are relevant for the energy transition. I can tell you there are many questions in industry, in governments, with citizens, and they would like to ask them to the university to help them to solve issues, but the university for the outside world is a complete inaccessible fortress. And what we try to do is to provide a brokerage function, so to say, to pick up the questions and to connect them to the knowledge base in the university. That is the second one, and we have examples there, like in the regional energy strategy development, where we have played with a relatively simple form of a digital twin of the system, but helping people to understand what are the consequences of certain choices. That's the kind of things that we do there. And there is a third pillar, and that's the main pillar that we are going to talk about later on, is setting up a few large mission-driven research programs.
Okay. That's going to be the core of the rest of this meeting. Interesting to hear. So, I mean, you have existed now for like 18 months. I think so. It's already amazing what you have achieved in those 18 months. I think these three lines of working. Are there already any demonstrable things that you could mention? Grants or projects acquired or?
What we see is that it's a bit two parallel paths. One is building the connection with industry for the different domains. Yeah. We have very much chosen to make that an outside-in approach for all this. So we have started to a large extent, on one hand, building the teams, the PIs, grouping them internally to make clear what is the proposition UT can make towards the outside world. And we have also been in contact now with a large number of industries that previously, partly were aware of what the UT was doing, but to a very large extent, UT was complete unknown grounds. Yeah. So that is, I think, the point where we are right now. We have built the alliances, we have built the internal. Let me put it differently. We have built the internal alliances and the external connection, and now it's a matter of just making the next step and building programs.
Yeah, wow, okay. Super, it's indeed, so this is the right moment to have this event, I would say. All the infrastructure is there and now we're going to kick it off. Yeah. And so you call yourself an innovation hub. That's a concept that I like. It's maybe also a concept that really fits the UT as some kind of a platform where science and society interact. So what do you want this hub to achieve? Are there any concrete goals that you have with that hub?
Well, the hub is a specific function in what we see in the Center for Energy Innovation. We see the hub as connecting the societal questions to the UT knowledge base. But what the center is doing is partly the hub function, but to a large extent also profiling those mission-driven research programs. And for that, it's not just about doing projects. There is a significant difference between building programs and placing projects underneath, rather than just doing individual projects. And I think that is what is also being recognized by industry. We all of a sudden feel that we are being connected now, contacted by industry that say, hey, we hear you guys are doing this. That is interesting, because we are not only doing academic research, we also try to make the connection towards the higher TRL level. As you were saying, making the connection with the deployment, so to say. This where knowledge is not just knowledge, but where it is put to use, so to say.
Yeah, wonderful. So what is then the added value of the center, you think, for the UT researchers? I mean, maybe people are watching and think, hey, maybe I could connect. What does the center have to offer?
Well, one of the things that we have done in the past months, the past half year, is organizing quite a handful of all kind of brainstorms where people from different faculties, because that's what we see, all faculties are involved in the different programs in different ways. But we had brainstorms, and then all of a sudden you see that different researchers start to connect with colleagues that they didn't know before. We start to develop the program lines, and at the same time we see that it offers this larger representation provides visibility for the researchers, and also it helps to find the position in all kinds of grant applications, especially when it comes to the larger NWO and EU perspectives.
And can you easily build on research that is already being done at the UT and expand it towards energy, or do you really have to ask people to open up completely new research lines?
No, if we just have a look at what do we have currently going, it is it is already in the order of, let's say, 600 researchers that we can really pinpoint with name tags included, who is doing what in the research domain. But as I said, it is rather scattered. And what we try to do is to bring it together and also to position it together. And it is that outside positioning that strengthens the total effort. Really, it creates a multiplier by itself. But it starts simply by what we are currently having, but didn't know we had it.
600 people. That's indeed quite interesting. If you look through this lens at the UT, that you see 600 people who are just staff being able to do work within the context of the center. Super. And maybe it's also good to emphasize that it's not only for the engineering sciences and the natural sciences, but that also the social sciences are connected. Just last week we had a meeting actually organized by our design lab where we tried to invite as many people from the social sciences as we could find who might want to engage. Could you say a bit about that, about how the social sciences could connect to the center?
Well, the energy transition in the end is a social transition. So we can invent all kind of things from a technological perspective, but in the end it has to find a landing place in society. One of the things that we are talking about last week was, for example, the negative emission technology program, where CO2 is in the atmosphere at the entire globe. So you have some degree of freedom in terms of where do you do things. And then all of a sudden, geopolitics come around, business models come around, acceptance, where are citizens in the lead versus where are companies in the lead. That's all kind of things that play there. And we recognize very much that it is the balance between the technical developments and the social developments or understanding of the social environment where the technical developments have to land. I think having this mix, the UT has a unique possibility to make that work. And it takes an effort from all sides. But I think it improves our proposition tremendously.
Yeah, super. No, I couldn't agree more. Indeed, I think it's quite unique what we have here, also as an infrastructure for doing science from society, right? From a societal question, a societal issue, where you do not only start from what science can bring, but more from what society needs, and then we see how we can align our researchers to work with that. And indeed, of course, it is also a societal transition and not only a technical transition. So, what do you need from the UT researchers to make the center a success?
The worst that could happen is when people say, okay, you organize this center, but I do my research. Happily, that didn't happen. And what I have learned from all the brainstorms that we have had in the past half year, there are so many enthusiastic researchers that want to make a contribution to those program lines, to whatever. So there is the connection is really growing internally, and also to make that a proposition towards the outside world. Yeah. And that is what we need from our researchers, the willingness to do things together. And I'm very positive about the possibilities to get that organized. And we are supportive in organizing. But the research is still the research. And I think that is it also positions us in a relatively modest role. We are making the connection, but it helps. We ask from the researchers to be open and understanding what the mission-driven character of a number of things are, and at the same time, we will help to organize funding and industry participation and all these things, all the things that for many researchers are, well, maybe not their main point of attention. Wonderful.
So what you need is engagement and people's brains and enthusiasm, but basically for all disciplines there is a place, right? Right. That's maybe also what I felt in that meeting at the design lab. I mean, it was about negative emission, CO2 absorption, and that has, of course, a lot of societal questions as well. I mean, people sometimes even call this geoengineering, where we try to dim the sunlight, maybe, or even actually to reduce the whole kind of greenhouse effect, which has a lot of ethical questions, a lot of questions about our democracy, how we can deal with the risk, etc. So it is not only technological. Of course, there is a lot of technical work going on. We will hear much more about that. But I just wanted to emphasize that the whole UT can really, connect to this. So let's go to some questions from the audience, because there are people bringing questions in. Now, one question that comes in from the audience is, there is already an overload of top-down initiatives, people say. So can we have one more? Should we see this as just, is there a specific connection from the UT to citizens and to society to make this top-down initiative work? Or, how do you feel that?
It is, and now I'm using the words of Guus Reinders. Guus denoted the program of the Center of Energy Innovation as a translational program, where you make the translation basically between fundamental research and application of that knowledge in society and in industry. Yeah. And I think that doesn't make it a top-down initiative. It very much makes it a connecting initiative. And I would certainly denote that differently from each other. Yeah. So it's really making the connection and helping all the individual projects that are already in place to connect them and to see what is needed. Exactly. On top of that, and that is maybe the addition that you will make, for that reason the program will grow, because new things will come in. But it is not top down. It's very much in the lateral translation. So
within the UT, it's not top down. It's more a platform where people can do their work. I think the question was maybe also outside the UT. So citizens might also have their own ideas, their own contribution to setting the agenda, to doing research maybe on the energy transition. There's a lot of citizen science going on there. Is there a way to connect citizens to the work? How can they be involved through citizen science or otherwise?
This is a very tricky issue in that perspective, knowing that, especially in the energy transition, things like not in my backyard play a very important role when it comes to opinions that individual citizens have about the transition on one hand and what is happening nearby on the other hand. Yeah. That is what you see on a local, regional scale, having a lot of questions about that. But when I look, for example, at that negative emission technology program, you can see that is a global issue. And then we are no longer talking about what people in Losser think about the energy transition, but then we are all of a sudden talking about what do people in Botswana think about the energy transition and the technologies and the ways that the things that are happening there. Yeah. So I think the interesting part for the university is that we have local, regional parties to play, but we also have a global role to play. Yeah, and absolutely. I think that is very much what, in my view, the ambition of a top university should be. Yeah. That is not only a regional one. Yeah, nice. It's also really nice that you bring in that not in my backyard theme, because indeed that's a big obstacle for a lot of policy making. And at the same time, I think people in citizen science try to frame that, rightly so, I think, as an alternative to. I mean, if you have the not in my backyard discussion, it's the government, and then the citizen can complain about the government. But if you put the citizens also in the driver's seat, as it were, to take part in taking responsibility for how to deal with the energy transition, maybe it could work. I don't know. May I make a little addition there? And that's maybe a bit too much content, but what I see is that we are talking about local, regional, national and international networks for energy. I think many of those networks locally, that is where citizens may have an important role. It is the governmental role to make this interconnection between the different levels. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So at least we now know that we can indeed work with a lot of scientific fields
together. So I think this was great. I think it helps a lot to understand what the center is all doing. So maybe it's now time to move to the 4 mission-driven lines of research, mission-driven programs that you have. So maybe you could just first give us a bit of a general introduction on that. So we have one on advanced battery technology, one on the digitalization of the energy system, one on low energy data centers, and one that we already discussed, negative emission technologies. So can you maybe explain a bit why these 4, for instance, and how it works?
Yeah, there is of course more, and research at the UT definitely cover more ground than just those 4. Although if you take a deeper look at those 4, it encompasses a lot of issues that are relevant. The reason to choose those 4 initially, and it has been open for debate whether it should be those 4 or differently, has been on the table from the very beginning. But people recognize those 4 as being significant societal challenges. Yeah. That is one issue. And the second one is that this is where the UT knowledge base can provide a unique proposition. And I think this distinct proposition makes it a very easy sell for those 4 programs. Yeah. I've been telling this story with the Ministry of Economic Affairs, with NERA, the Dutch Energy Research Association, with the 4TU energy people. And there is absolutely no difficulty in explaining that this is the UT proposition. And what I see is that there are no discussions about Me Too or whatever. And I think that is very important, that you stay away from doing things that are obviously just a doubling of things that are happening elsewhere. Exactly. Putting it in the framework of mission-driven programs around those themes, it is very much recognized, okay, this is where UT is focusing at. And it gives color, it gives focus, and also in the end it creates mass. And I think those are the keywords. Super, sounds good. So this is in a sense bottom up. This is what you found at the UT, the basis to start with and to do exciting work. So let's go through them one by one and also hear some people who are involved in it. And we start with the advanced battery technology mission-driven program. And let's first watch a movie where it will be introduced.
My dream for the future is that the society has realized this energy transition and that energy storage is not a limitation for our daily life, that this has just became a very standard with optimized conditions in capacity, charging time and lifetime. Now at the Center for Energy Innovation here at the University of Twente, we combine all research on energy applications. And this is crucial to realize the energy transition.
The Twente Center of Advanced Battery Technology is a center that brings together different expertises over the full life cycle of batteries. And that's what makes it very unique, from the material side over manufacturing to the system applications and also later end of life.
The contribution in my group is really focused on the materials and the chemistries inside of the battery cells, where we're looking into the advanced lithium-ion battery technologies with new type of materials, but also with other material systems which go beyond lithium, which we hopefully can be expecting in a couple of years' time.
We focus on 2 applications. On the one hand side is stationary energy storage, which is important to integrate renewable energies into the grid, for example. And the other one are electric vehicles, where of course batteries play an important role to make electric mobility possible.
Here at the university, there are over 30 research groups involved in battery research over all these different expertises, and there is quite some collaboration between the different groups. We have a strong collaboration with the University of Münster. We have a very strong connection to Forschungscenter Jülich and the Fraunhofer Institute. But of course, we're also collaborating with many other universities in European programs, but also globally across the whole world.
My dream for the future is that we in Europe actually can produce batteries on a larger scale, which are cost efficient but also sustainable from an environmental perspective, because this is still one of the main challenges related to battery production.
Hoedemakers, the program manager for advanced battery technology. Janneke, let's see if you can come online. Yeah, there you are. Good. It's
And I hope you can hear me.
Exciting, but I cannot hear you. Maybe in the studio they can hear you, but I cannot. Let me check the technicians. So we have then a little problem
1, 2,
because
3,
I
test.
can ask you a question. Well, I can ask you a question anyway, because otherwise it will be a very long silence for the people at home. And I can read your lips, I think, understand a bit what you say. So the first thing that I want to ask you is simply, could you give us an example of what the Center for Advanced Battery Technology has achieved in the last year?
Yes. Luckily, I do hear the question, and I hope you get to hear me, because it would be nice to have a dialogue. So some of the achievements in the past year, and I think maybe first referring to one of the comments that on the top-down program, that at least for battery technology, I feel that this is a bottom-up initiative and really coming from a young group of scientists who really would like to collaborate and see an opportunity in battery technology for the Netherlands, but specifically for the UT and in the region. What we've achieved so far, and I think has been difficult through Corona, but we have mobilized the internal UT community in battery technology, getting together the different disciplines. And I will just continue my monologue then, because I understand from your small comments that you can still not hear me. So we have done a lot of work on community building and also finding out the interest of the different researchers within the UT. And we put our battery technology research as we currently have it on the agenda, on the national agenda, and also in the region. We had a lot of meetings with people from the ministries, but also with the regional development agencies, to show what we have in-house currently and that we have an ambition to let this grow. And this also really triggered people from the ministry now to put batteries on the national agenda again.
Wonderful. Wonderful, and by now I hear you also, so it's a bit
That's
silly,
perfect.
but I have not heard the first minutes of what you said, so that's quite a handicap here if you're doing an interview. But I think the last part of it summarized it quite nicely for me. Maybe I can just ask you a follow-up question, because now that we've seen a bit what you've achieved so far, what do you see as the main challenge for the coming period? So just to give people a bit of an idea of the work that will take place in the coming month or years.
Yes, thanks. And that also has to do with keeping activating the community, and especially with our partners. So with the industrial partners that we are discussing the program with, to get them on board in a programmatic way. So one of the initiatives we have is an NWO program we are developing, a long-term program for 10 years, where we are discussing with companies on how they see their involvement in the batteries in the area of mobility. And we're really aligning the agendas. And with that, we hope to also facilitate researchers to grasp the funds and the funding opportunities that are ahead in Europe and in the national landscape.
Wonderful. Is there a lot of industry engaged in what you're doing? Do you have a lot of contact with the big players in the industry already?
So yeah, when you think about battery technology, we know in the Netherlands there are no cell-producing companies, but there are a lot of companies that are involved, that see an involvement in the future battery technology value chain. And they are also discussing with us on how, in the different applications areas, new battery technologies play a role. So think of companies in the shipping like Damen. We're discussing with bikes companies, but also in stationary storage, as also was introduced in the video, to have some storage capacity for renewable energy. So there are many companies we're discussing with, and also in materials companies like Tata Steel.
Exciting. I mean, I could imagine that if you work on batteries, for instance, for cars, that it also brings a lot of other issues, like how to design a car, maybe, and issues of safety, all those things. I mean, are they somehow also connected to the work that you do within the center?
Yes, and I think that's the nice part also about the community we have within the UT, that from the different faculties, we have people with so many different expertises. They inspire each other on how these new applications would look like. So if we would discuss a new battery cell type, how can that lead to a different design of the battery, and how can it be integrated in the product or even in the system for mobility?
Super. Thank you, Janneke, for the energy that you gave and all the nice insights that you gave. This is super, super exciting work. So nice to hear more about it. So unfortunately, we already have to go to our next guest, which is Mark Zink. But I think Mark will only come online after we have first watched the movie about the second theme of research, the digitalization of the energy system. So let's watch it together.
My ultimate goal is that we support the energy transition in a direction where we get an energy system completely based on renewable sources, so a clean environment for our next generation. My name is Johan Huring, and I'm a professor with a background in applied mathematics at the University of Twente, and I'm a scientific lead of a digitalization of the energy system program. Renewable energy sources do not generate electricity at a constant rate and planned rate like conventional power plants are doing. For instance, if it's cloudy or raining, we get no electricity. These changes imply that we get a complex system of different modalities, storage options, conversion options, and transport of energy. Digitalization of the energy system program at our university aims to support this transition. Our research program is focusing on realizing a seamless and cost-effective transformation of our energy system, all the way from generation to end use, hereby fulfilling the demand in a sustainable way and respecting the capacity requirements. Furthermore, we need to facilitate distributed electricity generation. To achieve this, we need to balance supply and demand and smoothen out the peaks and valleys occurring in the grid. And finally, we need smart ways to handle the conversion between energy carriers, like for instance, hydrogen or heat. So next to the technical aspects, also social and economical aspects need to be taken into account. For instance, we have to make sure that our citizens are still able to pay for their energy bills. Also, the security of our energy systems is crucial. We have to make sure that our future smart grid is protected against cyber attacks. Here at the University of Twente, we work on these challenges in an integrated way, with academic partners, but also with energy companies and grid operators.
So this was yet another example of all the exciting work being done. It's like a candy store that we are in. So Mark Zink, I mentioned your name already. Could you come on? Yeah, there you are. Wonderful. You're the manager of this line of research. Can you say us a little bit about why this is the right time to start this line of research? Why now?
Yes, I think up to now we've been in a sort of a preparation phase for the energy transition in this sense. We see that the transition is starting now, it's happening now. So up to now, we've been preparing, and now we're seeing that renewable energy sources all around us are coming up. Policy is moving that direction, and big companies, for example, are announcing hundreds of billions of euro plans for the upcoming decades to upgrade the grid and prepare ourselves. And this means that it becomes quite a complex system now, that we are actually making that step, and all the bottlenecks are coming up now. So there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, and there is demand for a lot of knowledge and technologies that are still not there or not in place. And that's especially because the system is so complex. It's not only about electricity, it's also about heat, hydrogen, a lot of different modalities, and all the conversion between them. So that drives a lot of questions and a lot of bottlenecks that have to be answered now.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, I still have in my mind the remark from the chat about citizen science or citizen engagement. This seems to be a field where that could work, right? I mean, you need data from people about the energy use, the energy consumption. Is this something that you do? Are people in society also engaged, or is it mainly the industrial partners that you're working with?
No, that's a good point. So it has to be with a broad set of stakeholders, all the way citizens, policymakers, and as you mentioned, we need data of energy use in and around the house, for example. So this is very close to the citizens. Citizens are also producers of energy with solar panels on their roofs. So we need a way to manage this on a micro level, which obviously will include the citizens to get involved into how we're going to actually solve these problems.
Wonderful. So what do you see then as the main challenge or the main hurdles to take in the coming period?
Yeah, so in the video you already saw a couple of themes that were mentioned by Johan Huring, all the way from smart energy management systems to cybersecurity to socioeconomic aspects. And I think one of the challenges is that we have to combine that into different research lines. So the challenge is to get holistic systems that can actually model and simulate many of the decisions that we make. So as I already mentioned, there's a lot of money going to be invested in the upcoming decades in upgrading the grid, and mistakes can be very costly. So it becomes very important to, on forehand, test before invest, model these changes in a digital twin of this very complex system of systems.
Yeah, super exciting. So that also means to do this work that you really need to have a lot of interaction between various scientific fields, right? That must be a challenge in itself. It's a very interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary maybe even, because also partners from society work there. But is that a challenge in itself? I mean, is it hard to do that, or does it go automatically, as it were?
No, it's a good point. So that's a major challenge in getting all the disciplines combined. But then, as you mentioned, also citizens, policymakers, and the big companies, from energy companies, grid operators, garbage disposal companies, everything in the chain has to be connected. And I think one of the major challenges is also to connect all the different initiatives. We have a lot of small field labs. We have a lot of initiatives that deal with a part of the problem, only a very specific problem on hydrogen conversion or another form of storage. But we need to really connect all of this in order to create the energy management systems between all of these components.
Nice, nice. I mean, so we've spoken a lot about the UT as a testing place, the campus as a living lab, as it were. And maybe this also offers nice ways to do that, right? So can we make, for instance, something like a energy place for Twente, a microgrid maybe, to test here on campus?
Yeah, well, on campus, that would be amazing. And there are a lot of initiatives moving along on and off campus. There are a lot of these testing grounds. And again, I think the challenge is to really connect them. So we have designated testing grounds for several aspects of the whole system. And on campus, obviously, we would want to have more visibility on that.
Wow. Amazing. That would be cool. Then we do not only have a digital twin, but we have a real physical test place here on campus. So thank you so much. It was great, Mark, to hear so many interesting things about the energy system, digitalization. So let's move to the third theme then, the third research line, which is about low energy data centers. And we will first watch a movie, then we have two guests from outside, not the least guests actually, Rob Elsingha, Microsoft, Marjolein Bot from the Amsterdam Economic Board, who will join later. But let's first watch the movie.
In the future, a lot of energy in data centers can be saved by making the communication of information within the data center more efficient by using photonics. Here at the University of Twente, we do research on nanophotonics, in particular integrated photonics. We're making chips of light, and they can help, if they're incorporated in data centers, to reduce the energy consumption of these data centers.
We all like our video streaming and we all do our online meetings, and that uses a lot of data center capacity. And that drives the demand for data center capacity up and also the energy consumption of data centers, where in 2018 the energy consumption of data centers was about 1% of the global energy demand. The expectation is that in 2030 that has increased to about 8%. So the program is now designed to, on the short term, look at the existing data center technologies and see how we can optimize the energy consumption. We look at the thermal management of the data center and also at AI solutions to optimize the different functionalities in the data center towards lowest energy consumption and look at the role of the data center in the energy system as a whole. On the long term, step by step, we want to develop new technologies that move us away step by step from the existing technologies and therefore also away from the heat generation from the existing electronics.
These chips, they allow to route information on the chip photonically instead of by electronics. And communication of information is much more efficient if you transport photons, light, than if you transport electrons, particularly at long distance, but these distances get shorter and shorter. For the future, there are also other technologies that are important for computation, in particular quantum computing. Here at the University of Twente, we do research in quantum simulators, specific devices that solve particular problems way more efficient than classical computers can solve them.
In the program, we work together with a broad variety of partners, both from different research institutes, but also from industry. Our cross-functional way of working attracts a lot of attention also from partners abroad.
Energy consumption is one of the biggest challenges of mankind. Wouldn't it be fantastic if my research can help solve a small piece of that puzzle for mankind?
Yet another fascinating line of work, I think. Let's first speak about this with Rob Elsingha, the CTO, Chief Technology Officer of Microsoft Netherlands. Rob, welcome. Wonderful. That's the good thing of this virus, even though it has many bad things as well. We can just have people in studio as if it's nothing. So even you, thank you so much. Wonderful that you want to join. Maybe just first a very open question: lowering the energy use of data centers, is that an important issue for Microsoft?
Well, I would say, of course, with global, over 160 hyperscale data centers across the world, and a global high-speed network, we use a lot of energy. So lowering the energy usage of our data centers, as well as the carbon emission that comes with this, are key priorities for Microsoft. Okay. And as a company, we have a huge responsibility to sustainability and also a huge commitment in lowering this energy and carbon usage. And growing our services and our capacity 2 times should not mean that we grow our energy usage in the same magnitude. So we are working hard to achieve a goal in all aspects of our data centers, from hardware design to networking and operations.
Yeah, wonderful. And of course, I mean, there must be many issues for you at stake. It's maybe also, of course, where you build these data centers, where they have impact on the environment and where the energy comes from. We've seen a lot of issues in our society. So just an open question, what are the main themes that Microsoft needs knowledge about, needs universities, academic partners to do research about?
Well, there are many. We do have Microsoft Research. We do have around 1,200 researchers ourselves. So we are almost a university ourselves. But with the UT, we are working. We started working on photonics. That is a very important area of innovation for us. Like I said, we design our own servers and hardware. Not only to make them more powerful for specific tasks, but also more energy efficient. And we think that photonics can help us significantly reducing energy in the networking between servers and between servers and components. Okay. Another area where we look into is battery technology. There's another area that we're looking into very heavily. We started a pilot to replace backup generators that traditionally run on diesel by fuel cells on green hydrogen, and it also requires new battery technology. And we are even looking into hydrogen as our primary energy supply in the longer term. And also not to forget, our data centers are software defined, and we sometimes tend to forget that improving, let's say, algorithms and the way software works can help maybe even more in reducing energy than changing the hardware. So in short, there are a lot of technology advancements where we as Microsoft and knowledge institutes like the University of Twente need to work together.
Yeah, and are there any specific things in Twente that make Twente or this Center for Energy Innovation an attractive partner for you? Is there anything that stands out?
Now, like I said, we had many discussions the last couple of months, and we picked photonics as the first to collaborate on, and we need to make sure that the programs that Microsoft Research is working on is aligned with the work that the University of Twente is doing, and we found out that especially in the area of photonics, Twente can greatly contribute in innovation in the next 2 to 3 years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Great to hear. Exciting to hear your point of view on this. Thank you for being with us. And then we'll now switch to Marjolein Bot, the lead energy of the Amsterdam Economic Board. Marjolein, welcome here. Let's see if Marjolein can come online. Let's just give it a little bit of time. And if not, then maybe we can speak with Marjolein later.
Yeah.
Ah, there you are. Wonderful. Marjolein. Sorry, I couldn't see you.
Hi.
Maybe there was some technical issue here. Thank you so much.
That's okay.
Thank you. Wonderful. So can you tell us a little bit more about your involvement with the CEI, especially about the LEAP program that you're engaged in?
Yes, for sure. It's great to be here and to hear all those good stuff that you guys are working on, and that hopefully in the future we can work together on. So let me explain a little bit about the LEAP program. LEAP is a coalition across the data center value chain where we collaborate with data centers, clients of data centers, hardware, software vendors, national and local governments, knowledge institutions, startups, etc., etc. And we put this, we mobilized this coalition with the aim to accelerate the transition to what we call future-proof and sustainable digital infrastructure, where we actually accelerate innovative developments, whether they're technological or otherwise. It's quite broad, and we work in different tracks to move this forward. For example, we work on a technology roadmap, and we work on circular developments, as well as distributed concepts. And it's really about connecting the knowledge institutions, the business and the governments, just like I heard Jos talked about that before. And what we see in our coalition is that partners, they really understand that, they're the front runners, and they understand that they cannot tackle the issues alone. And that's why it's very important to work together. And we work with Microsoft, hi Rob, and with UT as well. And I think it's also good to mention that it was started with the Amsterdam Economic Board, and the board is a platform between what we call triple helix collaboration, knowledge institution, governments and business. And it was started in the Amsterdam because it's a vital global internet hub for the international data center sector. And the issues of data growth and high energy uses are really felt here. But we work with partners from all across the Netherlands now, because there's no, the data center value chain is not a kind of like a regional sector. It's really national and global, actually. And actually, it's
that's very exciting to hear. That made me wonder, indeed. The Amsterdam Economic Board and Twente, of course, we have a small country, but it's still the two extreme sides of this small country. So why Twente, and what kind of role can Twente, specifically Twente, play in the LEAP program?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's. And we don't only. I mean, the Amsterdam Economic Board. Actually, the name is a little bit strange because we don't. It's not only focused on Amsterdam, but it's the metropolitan of Amsterdam, and of course, Twente is part. No, I'm just kidding. But no.
The outskirts of Amsterdam.
No. I wouldn't say that at all. I wouldn't say that at all.
No
But
worries.
no, I mean, we work with decision makers and governments. We work with decision making in governments and in industry, and we need, knowledge institutions like the University of Twente to collaborate in building the solutions that are needed. And it's actually very good to mention here that we already started collaboration with one of your master students working on his thesis on ecosystems, the LEAP ecosystem as well as the ecosystem of the University of Twente, which is going to be very exciting to understand his research. And one of the things that we're currently developing is the LEAP technology roadmap. And I hope that in the future, the University of Twente, for example, can realize a physical field lab where we can test and pilot new solutions. So it's really about strengthening each other's efforts. And we don't want to do things that are already done somewhere else, but we'd rather stimulate and accelerate and strengthen it. So so that's it. And I think I'm really looking forward to further collaboration there.
Super exciting. I mean, since you are also, in the economic board, it sounds like there's also a lot of connections to the economy, to business, maybe to societal questions. Is that also a line of research that we could explore further? Maybe that people in business or in engineering management could play a role.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that we see, it's very systemic. So it's not about technology. It's actually about creating new business models. It's about creating different way of thinking around the digital system and the energy system. It should be a kind of like a new kind of like a starting point that accelerates this innovation. So one of our conclusions is there's a lot of technology, but to accelerate it, we need to look at the impediments and look at the barriers. And one of those, or a topic there is thinking about new ways of creating business cases or value cases in that sense.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really exciting to hear that all these things are going on. So I think this is going to be a nice future. Thank you so much, Marjolein Bot, for being with us. Wonderful. So let's go to the fourth and last research line, which is the negative emission technologies research line that we have already briefly mentioned. And again, we'll first watch a movie together to introduce it.
What motivates me is to work on scientific challenges that are connected to actual problems in the real world. The negative emission technology program at the University.
So, sorry for this, but there is an issue with the video, as you might have noticed at home. We thought maybe it was only the screen here in studio, but the video will be published online actually next week, so you can still watch it. So I think what we should do now is to go directly to Bob Homans, the manager of this research program, because I think Bob can tell us even maybe much better what there was to be seen than in the movie. Bob, are you already online? Yes, wonderful. Welcome, Bob. Good to see you here online. So maybe then the first question to ask you, because people have not been able to watch the video properly, is can you explain the main questions, the main challenges to deal with in the negative emission technologies research program?
Well, the main challenges are to develop technologies that are able to capture CO2 from the atmosphere with the aim to reduce the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. And there's different ways to do that, like air capture via biomass or carbonates and minerals, etc. And we are aiming to develop technologies to both capture and then to transform CO2 in a material that is stored away for a long time, or actually can be used as a material that we need here.
Wow.
Yeah, so
the whole idea is to capture CO2 from the atmosphere and convert it into other substances that can be more useful than a substance that causes the greenhouse effect, right? So, of course, this is a very, very important thing to do. I mean, the person who could solve this might win the Nobel Prize, so that might be very good news for the UT, maybe at some point. No, but that's just a joke. Of course, it's a global challenge. I mean, it's not only a question for Twente or for the Netherlands or not even for the EU. It's a worldwide issue. So how will you deal with the global dimension of this research program?
Well, there's global aspects also offer opportunities, because at different locations on Earth there's different solutions possible, or even solutions called for. And there's, for example, on Iceland they have installed a direct air capture unit where they make use of the local soil with thermal activity and the capacity to have the CO2 react with the minerals there to get it into carbonates. And on the other side, you would have, let's say, in a desert-like environment, you would call for a different type of solution. So there, it would be possible, if you can convert the CO2 that you capture there into carbon, for example, then you can use the carbon as a soil improver to make the land available there more fertile. And then at the same time, one of the challenges with CO2 capture is that there's also water in the air. In the atmosphere, and then when you capture CO2, you automatically capture the water as well, which is a problem in one sense, but for desert-like environments, it can give you also a nice opportunity for water shortage, etc.
It's incredibly complex. So as soon as you start to absorb CO2, then you have technical issues, how to do that. But of course, it also touches on all kinds of political issues, maybe in the countries where you are doing that, or economical, or maybe societal, ethical even. So which of these ones is the most challenging for you?
Well, they are all important. So I'm a chemical engineer myself, so you like to think first from the technical side. But it's clear with this team that it's not just the technical challenge that is great. It's also about, let's say, the countries setting themselves to actually participate in these kind of programs, allowing these techniques to be solved. Like say, we saw the Paris Climate Agreement that's been accepted by a lot of countries in the world, not all of them. Some of them have even intermittently stepped out of that. One of the things for us is also to feed the politicians, for example, with arguments why to accept these kind of technologies and why they are beneficial for society.
Yeah, indeed. Which is maybe yet another nice link to citizen engagement, and to see if we could find out what people find acceptable and what they don't. I mean, what still stands by me in this field is a discussion that I had some time ago with Albert van den Berg, one of our leading professors here, about maybe the possibility to somehow create microorganisms that can absorb CO2, convert it into forms of calcium, for instance, like the rocks at Dover, and then the oceans would become lungs that would, take out the CO2 from the air, which sounds like a fascinating idea, but also a scary idea, I felt, because who's going to control how much CO2 they absorb, and what kind of risks do we take there, and how can we deal with that? I mean, maybe a bit of philosophical question, I can't help being a philosopher, but do you also deal with these bigger societal questions?
Yeah, they are part of the program, so we are dealing with those. And what you see here is that the system, that Earth itself has a lot of natural mechanisms to absorb and emit CO2. And basically, with using fossil fuels for the past 2 centuries, we have intervened in that, and that's how we've got an excess of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And then now we have to take that out as well, but we have to do it amidst all the natural processes that are already there. So you have to really keep a good eye on the balance there, and that's for sure one of the challenges. And for the technological aspects, it helps there when you have technology available that you can switch on and off, for instance. So you don't start a process that runs out of control over the course of years. That should be a consideration as well.
Yeah, exactly. And there always needs to be some kind of an escape. Exciting. And so maybe just one thing about the name, negative emission technologies. I mean, it sounds a bit negative. So why this name? Is it an internationally accepted way to talk about these things, or should we have a team of communication specialists develop a better name?
Yeah, well, it was one of my first impressions as well when I joined the program. It doesn't sound really positive, but it's a household name internationally as well. It's in reports by EU and in global institutions, as well as it is in all sorts of call text that we are trying to enter in getting grants. Myself, I've tried to come up with a term like carbon harvesting technologies. It should sound more friendly and has a certain circular aspect to it, because that's something that we want to achieve in the further future, that we have a circular system in getting your carbon from the atmosphere rather than from fossils, which would be a way to have it going sustainable. Yeah, but for now, the negative emission technology is the name that it's known for in the world. So we would have to do a gentle takeover with introducing a different name.
Yeah, that sounds like the ultimate illustration of the challenge that we have to turn something negative into something positive. But carbon harvesting sounds good. Maybe if you make it the subtitle of the research program, then at some point people will start to recognize it, and we do some concept re-engineering. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Bob. It was exciting to hear. Thank you for being with us. So this gave us quite a nice overview, I think, of 4 research lines. I can imagine that there are many things that you want to ask. Please keep asking the questions in the chat. Jos and I are going to do a bit of a wrap-up now, but there will be, ample time. There will be some time to put the questions that you have at home here on the table. So Jos, now we've seen those 4 missions. Can you say a bit more about how they are interconnected? Is it just 4 separate research lines, or are there also linkages between the 4 lines?
It will be obvious that the starting point already is a general one, being the energy transition. So there it already starts. What we do see is that in everything you do, digitization plays a role. So that is, to start with, some sort of an umbrella that covers everything. There is also the societal connection that is everywhere. There is then, when it comes to technology developments, I think they are slightly more program specific. But in general, we see a number of things interconnecting, like what Rob Elsingha was just saying about, well, we are interested in battery storage because that is a serious issue to have redundancy in the systems. That is, we started talking with Microsoft on the data center program first, but eventually their interest grew into much more than that, and they were saying, okay, it's the battery stuff that is very interesting. It is the digitization, especially when it goes beyond the data center stuff as such. But when it comes to the systems approach, then it all of a sudden becomes in their line of interest. Then we see that many other companies that we are talking to, and we try to do that in some sort of a multi-level approach. We try to talk to top level, and we try to talk to the the peers of our researchers to see how the appreciation of the different developments, how that works out. But you see that all those things are interconnected, and that is how it is felt by many of the industries we talk to. The funny thing is, and I should add that, is that for most of those programs, we are now building a whole chain of parties involved, mainly companies, but also research institutions, other universities, whatever you can dream of. What we see is that most companies have an interest in one or two specific items in such a program. But then all of a sudden they say, yeah, but we also like the fact to be together in this larger ecosystem. And the value of that is, I think, rather often underestimated by our researchers. And that is what we try to build, because it all of a sudden it brings parties to the table that for an individual project would not be considered. And now you get an ecosystem where you get jointly developments going. And you can say, yeah, the programs interconnect, they partly overlap. Yes, of course, and that is being appreciated.
Yeah, exactly. I can imagine. Wonderful. So indeed, it functions like a platform, you could say. Yeah. Maybe with 4 corners, but there's a lot of cross-traffic between them. People can find them. People can also maybe inspire each other by being in that same Center for Energy Innovation.
Yeah. What we even see now is that companies start telling us, okay, you guys, and we had some very big ones from Silicon Valley that were approaching us now, saying, in this data center story, we see a lot of things happening in the world, but always it's just in little bits and pieces. You are the only you are building the only program in the world that has a holistic perspective, and we like that. Wow. How can we join? Wow. And that is, I think, the kind of exposure that you would like to create for the research that is being done in the university.
And I think indeed this fits what the University of Twente has always been, right? So the boundaries between the disciplines have always been quite thin at this university, even between the social sciences and the technical sciences. People like that. This is in our DNA, and maybe indeed with this idea of mission-driven science that you're deeply engaged in now, this can, well, show what it's worth, as it were. So, of course, there are also a lot of other themes in the energy debate these 4. So what happens to them? Is there also place for other research related to energy at the UT, or do you really want to focus on these 4? How should we see that?
Well, those 4 programs are intended to be mission-driven programs where you have very much a programmatic approach towards specific challenges that are in industry and society. There is much more, and there is also more that is being worked on in the UT context, and I think that can all be given a proper house in the Center of Energy Innovation, even without being one of those 4 programs. And I think especially in this brokerage role, when it comes to connecting questions from industry, from government and from citizens to the knowledge base, I think that there are many other things like the work on hydrogen, on solar, on whatever you can dream of. That is, it is being connected. And I think that is, there is of course much more, but it all has a, let's say, the same kind of warm attention.
Yeah, well, super interesting to hear. So, and indeed, it means this is a place where everyone can feel welcome, right? Yeah. So, if you say that there are already 600 people at the UT working on this theme, that's already huge. Yeah? So it also means that I think people who are interested could contact you. We'll end with that message also, but I just wanted to link to that already now. Maybe as a last question to you, can you also give an example of a project that was already kickstarted by the CEI?
Yeah, there is 2 things to be said there. The programs, as we are defining them now, they start to get shape, and with that also the first steps towards funding also get being shaped. It comes to LTPs, it comes to the larger NWOs things, it comes about larger programs that we participate in. Johan Huring, who was talking about the digitalization stuff, we supported Johan also in acquiring the EU funding, and he recently got 8 million euros for that research granted. So that is, we very much hope that using the Center for Energy Innovation as the, let's say, the pushing power behind individual calls and things, coordinating, supporting, I think that we can all benefit from that.
Wonderful. Sounds very exciting. Maybe it's also good to see if there are some questions from the audience. So I am looking if there might be a question from the chat. Maybe a first question could be, how does the Center for Energy Innovation relate to other groups that work on sustainability already at the UT, which we have also, the Sustainability Expert Group, we have the Green Hub Student Initiative also. So how is CI connected to that?
There is going on a lot of internal discussions and I should say conversations, because it's not one against the other. It is that we all realize very much each other's existence and the value that we represent for the other initiatives. As I said earlier, the energy theme is instrumental in getting the sustainability challenge done, and that is very much how we look at this. It is not one or the other. It is all together that you should make this happen.
Yeah, and so of course it also fits quite nicely into the Shaping 2030 strategy of the UT, right? Where society is first and science is second, you could say. Well, maybe not second, but at least science is there in the service of society. And if the sustainability goal is a common goal for the UT, then CI contributes to that as much as the other sustainability-related groups are doing that. So one other question that came from the audience was that there is often some kind of a mismatch between what companies or policymakers need and what scientists can bring. It's a challenge to bridge the gap between the two fields. So how will the Center for Energy Innovation foster successful cooperation between governments, industry and academia?
We have started with two lines. One is organizing the internal university world. We have had all kind of brainstorms with tens of PIs involved, building the internal program. We have been building the industry, let's say, demand side of this whole story, and now we have started, and that's relatively recent, to make the connections with parties that can bridge that gap, because academic research is not, well, in many instances, not yet ready to be implemented in society. So you need this bridging function. So we're talking to companies to pick up that role, and we're also talking to research institutions. Fraunhofer is already on campus. TNO is a possibility. We're talking to Vito in Belgium. We are talking to companies nearby, but also to some German companies with a large research capability that are capable to do this translation work from technology in a let's say, elementary development stage towards real application. And I think that if you can bring that together in the ecosystem, where you have the academic part, the application part, but also that translation part, I think that would be wonderful. And we see the traction coming up.
Wonderful. Okay, that's indeed super interesting to see also that all those other partners are involved and each of them finds their own role in the whole ecosystem. So I also want to say that the video of the negative emission technology program will be posted in the chat. So for the people watching, so that you don't have to wait until it will be somewhere online, but you can look at on the chat. And I also see that lots of connections are being made in the chat. People really find each other, which is really good, which is also something that we hope to achieve with this kickoff event. A kickoff after 18 months doesn't mean that it only starts now. Of course, we build on the work that has been done, but I think the CEI is now really kicking off in the sense of, well, catching the wind and starting to fly. So that's really very nice to see. So, well, we are nearing the end of the program already, Jos. Maybe, do you have any final wise words as a take-home message for everyone?
Yes, and that is rather simple. We can only do this together. So what I would like to ask is, if you're not yet involved in any way in this program, but you would like to be so, or you think you might contribute to one of the different lines or whatsoever, or just want to have a discussion about that, we are open for discussion, and we simply need to do this together. It is, as I said earlier on, the role of the Center for Energy Innovation is very much I would say, a connecting role. It's not that we do this by ourselves. It is the UT that does it, but we simply do the advertisement. That's basically where it comes down to. So it's your program, bottom line.
Wonderful. That sounds good. And that's maybe also to be seen as an open invitation for anyone who has been watching this to feel connected and to contact the program. You can contact the program through utwente.nl/energy if you would want just to learn more, to get information. Everything you want to know can be there. And if it's not there, there are people who can help you for that. So thank you, Jos, for all your interesting insights and interesting words. And indeed, as I already said also to Janneke, for the energy that you bring to the energy discussion here. I think it's very important, and I think people feel all the commitment of the people working on it, the exciting challenges, scientific, societal challenges that are ahead of us. So wonderful that you were with us. Also a great thanks to Rob Elsingha and Marjolein Bot from Microsoft and the Amsterdam Economic Board for having joined us, and of course all the people from the research lines within the Center of Energy. Thank you very much. Also people at home for watching. It was great to see that so many links are being made already. So we really hope that this was the beginning of a lot of beautiful things yet to come. Hope to see you soon. We had 90 viewers so far, I see, and my experience from other things tell that this will go up rapidly when it's online and people can watch it at their own time. Live watching, I think, has become something outdated in our society. So thank you for watching, and we hope to see you back at the Center for Energy Innovation. Bye-bye.